Ladies and gentlemen, it's time once again for another season of Chewing the Gristle with yours truly, Greg Koch. Can you believe it's already season 6? We've got so many cool interviews lined up. Are we going to talk about music? You betcha. But what else are we going to talk about? Well, quite frankly, anything that comes to mind. So stay tuned, doggone it. Let's chew that doggone gristle. Season 6. Come. This week on Chewing the Gristle, we've got a favorite of mine, Ben Eller, Uncle Ben, if you will, internet phenom. He's a guitar-playing fiend, but also a bass-playing fiend and a internet content provider of unparalleled excellence. This week on Chewing the Gristle, my buddy Ben Eller. Come on, y'all. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, once again, we've gathered round the gristle fire for a little conversation, a little chewing the gristle, if you will. Today's guest, the mighty Ben Eller. You know him as Uncle Ben on the Intergoogles, guitar player, educator, rascal extraordinaire. Recently seen on stage with Mastodon. I myself have been accused of being a mastodon, but in another context entirely. But Ben, how the hell are you, my good man?
Oh, my goodness. I'm so happy to be here, Gregory Cockery. Dr. Cockery, I like to call you. It's such a pleasure to be here on your show. It's a splendid podcast that you've got going, and I'm honored to be a guest upon it and chew some gristle, do some chin wagging with you here on your show. So thank you, and thank you, listeners, for giving this a listen with your hearing ears.
Yes. Well, you know what? You're one of my favorite peeps. I always enjoy hanging with you every time I'm down there in beautiful Tennessee and we have an opportunity to maybe make some music together, maybe just hang out, maybe just go to a certain Waffle House.
Maybe we trash a Waffle House. Maybe we turn that Waffle House into a waffle home. Have you thought about that?
Oh, I am with you 1,000%.
When I'm there with you and I'm having that buttered pecan waffle and some smothered and covered hash browns, I feel like it's more of a waffle home.
Yeah, you're damn right it is. You know, when I was a youngin' and I was on the road with, I hadn't really been south all that much. And some of these other buddies of mine that had been on the road a bit were just, oh, the Waffle House is the worst. We'll never go. Don't ever eat at a Waffle House. So I had this kind of prejudicial image of that establishment until I finally went and I thought those individuals were high on crack. Because it is a place to engage in a delicious feast. And the waffles, because it is the namesake item of the establishment, I'll tell you what, it's a waffle like no other place. Am I right or am I right?
No, you're exactly right. They take great pride in their waffling there. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and rightly so.
I've got a concept for a chain of competitor waffle-based restaurants.
Yes.
Maybe you can be like an investor in on this. Maybe this is a good idea. Trademark Ben and Greg, obviously.
I like it.
Maybe we start a chain of Waffle Houses. It's like, we're trying to take it back to the scuzzy times before Waffle House had this family-friendly jukebox on the table image. We got to take it back to where, like, you gotta fist fight somebody to even get in the door.
Right.
I'm talking about a Waffle Hostel. How do you feel about a Waffle Hostel?
Oh, I like that. It brings all kinds of things to the fore. Not only does it
tough and tumble,
it kind of has a whiff of violence, but also kind of a homeless vibe as well.
Exactly.
I need a place to stay.
Sounds like adventure. Sounds like intrigue. Sounds like you're going to make some memories to me.
You are correct. And I'm for it 1,000%.
Waffle Hostel coming soon.
I'm in. Now, where are you as we speak? I see that you're in your studio. Now, people will be listening to this. They won't actually be seeing our activities, but I see many fancy amplification devices behind you. This is the official Uncle Ben lair.
This is the Ben Cave, which is full of WMDs, which is my shorthand for weapons of musical destruction.
Oh, I see you.
Things full of tubes and high gain and hot pickups and all the things that I love.
You like that rock music.
I like rock music. Yeah, I like to play rock guitar. I know Andy Wood, if he's listening to this, will be pleased to know that every gain knob on all of these amps is at 10. And there is a boost pedal in front of them as well.
Oh, I like what you're doing there.
Thank you. I'm fond of it personally.
You're bringing the filth, as any co-proprietor of the Waffle Hostel would.
I'm not only the owner, I'm also a client.
Exactly correct. So you have a very, very successful YouTube channel,
Thank you.
and it's excellent. You do a great job of dissecting some pretty complicated and also some more. It's for all levels of play, of course. But I'm wondering, when did you get hip to this whole idea of interneting and doing this instructional aspect with your own convivial charm?
Right. You know, it's interesting. It was kind of a project that was born out of, I would say, boredom first, you know, which is actually even the reason I started playing guitar in the first place, is out of boredom. Seemed like something to do, you know.
Right.
When I started playing guitar, it was because I was homeschooled, and so, you know, my graduating class was pretty small, so I didn't exactly have a large social circle. But, you know, it's like I could wake up in the morning, get all my schoolwork done by 11, and then just have to wait around all day till, you know, my friends that lived down the street came home from real school or whatever. So it was like, I need something to do. My brother has a guitar. I really wanted to play bass, but I might as well give this a shot. So that was kind of born out of boredom itself. And so was the YouTube channel. So if you go back and peruse the archives of the channel and dig really deep, there's a few just like kind of random covers that I put up, just recorded on a little, you know, digital camera, and it'd just be like, oh, here's like a cover song of like a Macedon thing that I learned, or this or that, right? But when I got kind of serious about it was when the instructional aspect kind of came about, and that's when like the "This Is Why You Suck at Guitar" series sort of started and took off pretty well, because the entire mindset there was, you know, at the time I was teaching a lot at a local shop at the Guitar Vault in Morristown, Tennessee. Used to be called the Fret Store, but now it's the Guitar Vault. Go and visit him. Tell him Uncle Ben sent you. I was teaching at the shop, and I mean, as you can imagine, dude, it's like I'm a pretty kind and gentle instructor, man. I want people to feel motivated. I want people to feel positive and stuff. Sometimes that's hard when Timmy has come in for 6 weeks and he's never practiced once in between.
Right.
So even as I'm sitting there, you know, across from in the teacher chair, giving him good, encouraging stuff to work on, in my head, I'm going, Timmy, this is why you suck at guitar. You didn't practice. You didn't do anything we talked about. This is why you suck at guitar.
Right.
So, you know, at the time, before I started that series, I was in a band called Arc. It was this progressive instrumental mutant band. Really, really awesome. 3 guitar players. It was rad, man. More on that later. But I was in this band, and that band kind of imploded. And so it was just like, dang it, I got all this extra time now. My wife was working nights a lot of the times. A lot of my friends had moved off to the big city, and I was still out in the country. So it's kind of the same spot I found myself in when I started playing guitar, where I was like, I kind of got to wait for my friends to come home. I need something to do. So my wife and a couple other people encouraged me. It's like, you're such a good teacher. You love teaching so much. You should put some stuff on this YouTube thing that's getting started off. This is like, you know, 10, 11 years ago at this point, maybe 12 years ago at this point. And I was thinking to myself, if I'm going to be putting this stuff out there for free and I'm not getting paid for it, I'm just going to tell it like what I'm thinking as I'm sitting in the chair across from Timmy. Timmy, this is why you suck at guitar.
Right.
You know,
Perfect.
I'm just going to say what I'm thinking if I'm doing it for free.
Right.
And somehow that worked for people. I got a sneeze coming in, I think. I got an epic sneeze.
That's all right. Do what you got to do. Humans going to, God bless you.
Oh my goodness!
Bless you, Uncle Ben.
Freight train coming through. Freight train. So yeah, it just kind of spawned that way, and somehow people caught on to the snarky humor, and I think they understood that I wasn't being mean or anything. It's all in good wit, you know. Hopefully.
Yes, of course. But that is an interesting point, because I often say that at this juncture in time, thanks to the oracle that most of us carry around in our hands or back pocket or wherever it might be, we have access to information unlike at any point in human history. And certainly as a guitar player, we have access to anything we're even mildly curious about. We can do the deep dive instantaneously. But I find that even though that is the case, people don't. And I always say there's really no reason to suck at this juncture in time, other than the fact that the age-old thing is, if you don't put the time in, it doesn't matter how much information you have at your fingertips. If you don't do the doings, you're going to suck the suckins. Am I right or am I right?
No, it's all the time put in, you know. You're right, though. It's like with the information that we have available, you can really shrink those time frames. I mean, rather than digging around and trying to find something, trying to find the technique that so-and-so used to play the song and spending hours on that before you come to the conclusion, you can just go straight to YouTube, watch a live video and be like, oh, he did it with this technique or whatever, and get right. you're collapsing time frames now.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, is it you putting in the hours? Is it you doing the work?
Right.
Getting mitts on that thing and mashing that rope a little bit, you know?
Mash that rope.
Gotta mash that rope. Gotta be mashing that rope.
Now tell us a little bit about your musical journey, how you got into the tunes you got into, and so on and so forth.
Oh my gosh. So, okay. I didn't really grow up in a house full of musicians. My dad had an acoustic guitar that was a gift to him. It was an old Yamaha, one of those like FG, I think it was a FG 120 or something, you know?
Oh, yes.
But
not a bad little guitar, not a bad first foray into the six-stringed wilderness.
Oh, huh? No, my brother still has it too, which is cool. He would get that thing out probably about once every year or so, open up the case. Like I still remember what the case smelled like.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know, that's an oft undervalued thing is the memories of the smells of guitar cases.
The case whiff. It's changed over the years. I find a lot of new guitar cases are noxious smelling, but like the ones from the 70s, 80s, 90s, they had this like cake frosting smell to them. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm with you. They had a thing.
They're doing it all wrong. They're doing it all wrong.
That's right.
So my old man would get out the guitar about once a year, and I remember like he could play like the riff from Smoke on the Water. Yes. He could play a basic blues shuffle, just a doom 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 doom.
Yeah.
And he just had like another riff or two, and then it'd go back in the case, you know, for the rest of the year. So that was kind of my guitar exposure growing up. But both of my parents were big music fans, you know, and had a big record collection. And my dad had a lot of classic and Southern rock stuff, and my mom had a lot of classical music, you know, Bach and Beethoven and all that, as well as stuff like the Beatles, you know. So I would say like a lot of my childhood was spent listening to classical music, Van Halen, ZZ Top, the Beatles, and like Leon Redbone, a lot of Leon Redbone. Yeah. What a mysterious cat. I know you're hip to Leon.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that guy died and like, we still know nothing about him, like nothing. There's no info about when he was born, how old he was. Like there's no info about the guy. Guy's an enigma. I love it. I kind of grew up with, you know, a wide array of different musical influences, I guess. And man, like some of my first memories that I have in life are of listening to Eruption on my parents' like turntable, like racks, you know, my brother putting the needle on that thing and be like, what is that sound? You know what I mean? It's like, I remember that. I just remember that so clearly in my head. One of my first memories is Van Halen 1.
I remember listening to, I was telling the story the other day about, my sister had this old like 77 Chevette. You remember those? They were really, really a small car. And it had this AM radio, and Running with the Devil would come on, and I'd be like, this song is so awesome, but I'm terrified because I actually think these guys are in league with the devil.
Yeah, dude. The ominous car horns at the front of it. Like it always creeped me out as a kid, man. Like just hearing the car horns at the front of that. It sounded so ominous and like
it did.
And that bass just bam, bam, bam.
Right.
Oh man.
It's like how evil do you have to be to actually exercise with the devil? You know what I mean? Let's go for a run, Satan. You know what I mean?
I've always found the ultimate evil about all of that is just the track listing itself and what they did to us, because it starts off with, you know, Running with the Devil. Van Halen 1 starts off with Running with the Devil, and it's like, okay, this sounds like a rad ass rock band. These guys are swinging. They're definitely drunk. Like these guys are awesome. The guitar playing in it, it's one of the Van Halen songs about everybody can play. Like even the solo in it, not ferocious at all.
Right.
Everybody can play it. Such a cruel joke. Track 2, Eruption.
Right. It says, hello.
That's the most evil trick in music history. It really is. Really, really is. But yeah, the same memories I hold for Eliminator by ZZ Top. That was a record that my dad had that we listened to all the time, man. I've probably been able to sing every note on that album since I was like 4. That's like embedded in my DNA.
You know what's interesting about that is being slightly older than you, Uncle Ben Bensky, is that I was a huge ZZ Top fan, and when that record came out, I hated it originally.
Yeah.
Because you know, I just saw ZZ Top on the El Loco tour, and it was awesome. And they had just started to do the choreographed maneuvers together, but it was a bare bones stage. You saw the Marshalls. It was the loudest concert I'd been to up to that point. And I may or may not have been imbibing in something to enhance my, sensory perception of the event. But it was awesome. And I was a guitar fiddler at the time, and one of my favorite buffet of tones was Tejas. There's just so many good, gnarly Les Paul tones, awesome Strat tone. The whole gamut is on that record.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden, Eliminator comes out, and I'm listening. Oh, it's young Dylan calling me. I can't talk right now, young Dylan. I'm engaging in spirited conversation. Anyway, so I did not like. I was like, "What are they doing?" One of the greatest tonesmiths of all time has reduced himself to playing whatever atrocious shit box. And then all of a sudden, I spent a little time with it. I was like, "Oh no, this shit rocks." And then I was all in. And then, of course, I had it and I played it out and I knew every morsel on the whole damn thing. Yeah.
It's funny because it's like I had the opposite experience where that was my first exposure to ZZ Top. So I didn't know any better. It would be, forever after that I heard, some of the early records, Tres Hombres and all this, and, learned about this other side of the band that wasn't drum machines and keyboards and the sequence and all that kind of stuff. I love it all because of that. I don't really have a preference either way. Can I tell you my cool Billy Gibbons story?
Please do.
Man, so it was September of, I got to think about what year this would have been. I think 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Might have been 2022. I think it's 2021. You'll know my math based on the story here. But I went sort of last minute with a couple of friends. Actually, I think a couple mutual friends of ours went to see Jeff Beck and ZZ Top.
Oh, yeah.
Outside of Nashville. And it was incredible. And I'm so glad that I went because we lost Jeff Beck. I think it was 2 months later.
Right, exactly.
So I got to see him right before he passed. Again, that's where my math on the years is getting fuzzy. But, ZZ Top was playing, Billy Gibbons was up there, and it's a different rad guitar every song. It's just, me and my buddies are just oogling over all these different guitars that he had. Joe Wyatt was there. We were just losing our minds over the place. Joe.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember what song it was during, but they bring out this just incredible, definitely a 59, burst, just legendary museum piece Les Paul. It's got this gorgeous flame top. It was just amazing. And so the whole song, me and my buddies are just oogling over this thing and drooling over it and being like, man, I bet that thing's worth $1 bajillion. That's so cool, man. That should be in the Smithsonian.
Right.
And dude, Billy Gibbons, beyond cool. He's the coolest guy that's ever lived, obviously.
Right.
At the end of the song, with this priceless 59 burst that he's holding, dude, he lifts the guitar so that he's kind of showing the crowd the back of the guitar inverted.
Yeah.
And it has this ginormous sticker that covers the entire back of the guitar, and it says beer. And he kind of points to it and gives us it's cool, huh? Look, and then just hands it off to his tech. Damn it, Billy Gibbons, you cannot be cooler. You can't be cooler than that. Beer. That's
beer. There it is. Only thing it would have been better if it would have said Waffle House. Am I right or remember?
That's the only way, man. The only way. Yeah, that's the only Billy Gibbons can get away with gilding the lily quite like that.
Correct, Amundo. But yes, the top, one of my favorites, and Billy Gibbons always one of my my favorite axe ticklers, especially that funky ass vibrato of his. It's just so damn juicy.
I'll tell you, that show with Jeff Beck and ZZ Top, one of the things that was a real revelation for me about it is I got to see 2 examples of what I think the hardest thing in the world is to do on guitar. The hardest thing, which is prove to everybody in the crowd, everybody in the room, that you are a supreme axe-wielding sorcerer without even breaching the realm of 16th notes.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
At that point too, both those guys, they're up in their years anyway, but neither of them have ever been shredders exactly.
That's true.
Jeff Beck a little more so, but even if you watch live at Ronnie Scott's, there's not a lot of
Right.
16ths on there, you know,
Exactly.
a scant sextuplet available for
Indeed.
your pleasure. But to me, that's the hardest thing in the world, is when you can prove to everybody that you are in total command of the instrument and not use speed to get there.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's the hardest thing.
Yep.
For me, anyway.
It's well, yeah, in most of the guys of that era, you know, that were where the electric guitar was elevated to the pantheon of godliness, you know, were practitioners of that activity. You know,
Oh yeah.
I mean, Page would get a little stickety diggity diggity here and there, and
Jimmy a Murney too.
Yeah, and old Jim Hendrix would throw out a salvo or two, but for the most part, it was not, to your point, not a 32nd or 16th note onslaught.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Kind of getting back to some of the musical origin stuff you were talking about, you know, from there, I think, and this is something that I think has changed so much over the age of youngsters these days with the availability of music and streaming services and all that. And I'm sure you remember this exact experience for yourself too, and I want to know what yours is. But like for a lot of people in the pre-streaming era, a big turning point for me was finding music that I wasn't introduced to by my parents.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, that was, I remember my brother coming home this one time, my older brother, Noah. He came home this one time from a friend's house and he's like, dude, I just saw this music video by this band called Weezer. It's called The Sweater Song. Dude, you won't believe it. They're nerds. They have like sweaters and glasses and they play rock music and it's so cool. And we got the Blue Album by Weezer, which has remained one of my favorite things humans have ever produced. You know? But like that, and then Dookie by Green Day, those were both incredibly important records for me because they were music that my parents didn't introduce me to. It was like, I found this, it's mine.
That's crazy. Well, you know what's interesting is that you're from a generation whose parents were in the original rock generation. I'm the youngest of 7, so my parents were World War II people, right? So my parents were not interested in any of the music I was into until later on. They're like, you know, I kind of like this song or I like that, and they were into it, but only after my entire youth they were like, turn that noise off. So all my stuff was from my older siblings. So my older brother is 14 years older than I am. So I was exposed to his record collection. So I guess the most, you know, would be what music I was introduced to that, you know, he wasn't already into. And boy, that could be all over the map. But you know, probably a lot of the, you know, older school blues stuff and so on and so forth. But I will always remember my brother bringing home Electric Ladyland from Jimi Hendrix, because he always told me, because that was one of the records we didn't have.
Yeah, dude.
And for whatever reason, I was really young and I was really into Hendrix, and I'll just always remember him saying to me, man, you haven't heard anything until you've heard Electric Ladyland.
Wow.
And so he came home one night after being out, and we had to share a room because we were the only 2 boys, and I had 5 sisters. So he came home, and I remember waking up, and he put on Still Raining, Still Dreaming, and I still remember, and I heard that, and it's like, I know what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
That's amazing. It just clicked, you know? It's like you heard something and it just clicked, and you're like,
exactly.
This is what something in me is looking for.
Yes, exactly correct. Which brings us to the whole thing of, you know, it's so interesting because the internet is filled with people with various opinions, right?
I mean, I've noticed.
you've got all these different people saying this, that, and the next thing, and I've just come to the feeling of, you know, you just have to be cognizant of where everyone's clock starts. Like you just told me where your clock started, of what, you know, like ZZ Top. You heard that. It completely depends on that, as far as what you value, and, you know, you can do homework and you can, you know, figure out where your perspective came from, but where you start the clock musically and how that imprinted on you and your desire to pursue it is a very specific thing. And you, as I said, you can inform it from past and current stuff and so on and so forth. But depending on where that clock starts is where those real kind of intrinsic beliefs are held.
True.
And you should respect that in other people too, because it's going to be different for everybody, because there is no right or wrong. Am I right or am I right?
No. You're exactly right. And you can't glean that information off of a generic username and a stock, avatar of that person. You
Right.
don't know. Like you don't know all that stuff.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. The internet has I don't know, man. I mean, obviously there's amazing things that have come from it. I mean, it's the entire world we live in, now. I mean, hell, we couldn't do it if, we couldn't do this interview if not for the internet.
Exactly.
That being said, I think that it's probably grown faster than the human brain has evolved to catch that. Here's what I'm talking about, Greg. Like when I think about my grandparents over the course of their lives, how many people do you think they knew? Like maybe 70 people living out in the country, living out on the farm. Like maybe they knew 70 people over the course of their lives. And now, our brains that were formerly just hiding out in caves and eating nuts and berries and foraging all day and maybe knew 70 people over the course of a lifetime. Now we have access to every human on Earth.
Right. Exactly.
That's a potent cocktail right there.
It is indeed. It's a fascinating thing. A buddy of mine, he was about my older brother's age. He's always been a musician, but for a time he had a straight job, if you will.
A normie.
He worked for a military contractor because he's very smart guy. And he was working for, and so they were hip to, because the first access to the internet was through, the defense industry.
Right.
And so being a musician and being, exposed to this technology, he foresaw all of it. He's like, music's going to become digital. All this stuff is going to, he knew it was
the writing on the wall. Yeah.
And didn't do him any good, but I'm just kidding. No, he's done just fine. But it was just interesting how he knew it was coming. He did an article for a local paper, or did an interview, or kind of saying, "Hey, all this stuff is coming." And and I'm not somebody, and I know you're not either. That's just like, it was so much better. I mean, it's just different. I mean, you go, different things happen, and you just pivot and you go and you enjoy it for what it is. I mean, I personally, from my career point of view, it's like I couldn't do everything I'm doing if it wasn't for the current situation. I mean, when
totally. I grew up in Hallbett, Tennessee, dude. Do you know how close that is to anything important or relevant for the music industry? Take a break, man.
It gives you the ability to communicate, as you said, with people all over the damn world. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, totally, man. It can be used and harnessed for the purpose of good.
We interrupt this regularly scheduled gristle-infested conversation to give a special shout-out to our friends at Fishman Transducers, makers of the Greg Koch signature Fluence Gristle Tone pickup set. Can you dig that? And our friends at Wildwood Guitars of Louisville, Colorado, bringing the heat in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains. Well, on the subject of interfacing with people on the inner Google, how much do you engage in individual posts? Because I find it difficult. If someone asks like a very specific question that hasn't been answered a million times, I'll pipe in and say something. But if someone says something like really obnoxious or even like astoundingly stupid, trying to get a rise out of me or whoever else, I will not engage at all. I'm just curious as to, have you fluctuated in your levels of engagement in this regard as your star has risen, if you will, as far as followers and so on and so forth? How do you approach that?
Right. That's a great question. I think the golden rule that anybody that is out there using their time to create content for the consumption of others, especially free content, stuff that nobody is forcing anyone to watch and no one is getting billed for, I think one of the golden, rules that everybody should abide by, and it's very simple, but it's totally changed my approach. Don't ever take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. It's that simple.
Excellent. Yes.
Simple, because obviously, I put a lot of stuff out there, and I'll tell you, the feedback is 99.9% great.
Yes.
I mean, people that I engage with and the comments that I see from people are vastly positive and very thankful and very, very cool people I want to engage with,
That's because you are positive, and it's a positive thing.
Thank you. I like to think that whatever you put out there is what circles back to you, you know? And that's kind of evidence of that. But like every now and then, one slips through the cracks. Maybe
Oh
some
yeah,
guy,
no doubt.
you know, he just wandered in off the streets and found himself in one of my videos and does not like the cut of my jib.
Right.
And there, you know, there'll be a trash talk comments about like, oh, you know, that's not how he plays it. You're playing it wrong. You're doing this wrong. You're an asshole. Like whatever. You know, some people just don't like your thing. And it would be really easy to get down in the ditch with them. You know, it would be really easy to get down there and sling some mud. But at the same time, do I know this person? Do I know their pedigree on the instrument? Do I know that they know what they're talking about? Why would I treat it like they do? I don't know this person, you know?
Exactly. And then you look and they have like 2 followers and no videos, or if they have a video, it's like,
oh yeah,
unbelievably foul.
Totally.
If you even bother to engage, but sometimes they're so the comment is so out there. You're like, where is this coming from?
Yeah. I don't think this is about me. I think this is about something else.
Exactly correct.
Call your dad.
Right.
Call him. Call her. You know. You know, it's it's kind of a funny thing how all that stuff works out, because you're exactly right, man. And I get a lot of people that, you know, talk to me and they're like, I thought about doing a YouTube channel. I thought about putting more of my playing out there, but I'm so scared of the haters. I'm so scared of people that will just rip me up and talk smack to me and all that. And dude, it's like, I'm here to tell you, as somebody that has done this for a long time, and as somebody who does the thing you're not supposed to do and reads all the comments. I read all the comments on my stuff. And I check it out whenever somebody has some, you know, some smack to talk. Right. I go check out and I see, well, what have you been up to?
Right.
And I'm here to tell you, everybody who's scared of doing something or putting something out there because they're scared of the haters have time to talk shit because they're not doing shit.
Exactly.
It's a fact.
Right.
Like seriously, like I've never gotten a smack talk comment from Steve Vai. You know why? Because Steve is too busy making the best guitar stuff ever.
Exactly correct.
So don't fear the haters. You know, don't do it. Like don't take criticism from them, because you wouldn't take advice from them either. It's like, you don't know these people, and most all of the time it's entirely projection, and they're not doing anything to make the world better themselves. That's a fact.
Sometimes the comments are so, as you said, it's like somebody just wandered right in. This is the thing. I mean, and I understand it to an extent. I mean, I try to put myself in other people's shoes at all times, and that it helps me from any number of different kind of knee-jerk reactions to things I would regret later. But you know, you get people who, it's like they don't do any research at all. Like, you're just some random dude, you know, who just, you know, they don't do any homework on, well, maybe this person has done X, Y, and Z, and maybe they'll take this one thing completely out of context. But again, to your point, it's like they're projecting whatever hellscape, their mental hellscape they're in on somebody else, some random person on the internet. And to even engage them whatsoever is to give credence to their own dysfunction. But how about the whole thing of, you know, you've explained something. You've even explained it in the description in terms of, you know, what it's from, what the tune is, what gear.
What song is this?
But then it'll just be the same questions all throughout. I'm like, I'm not answering that.
You reach that point, right, where you're like, I did my part by putting it out there in the first place.
Exactly.
So sort out the details later, right?
Right. I mean, unless it's like some, you know, for instance, if you do anything on slide guitar, anything at all, the first question you'll get is, what tuning is that? So I always go, I'm in standard tuning, or I'm an open G. And without a doubt, you know, write down, what tuning is that? And so then I even did a video. It's like, you know what, you can tell when you're in open tuning? Well, this happens. You know, if you hear the open strings ringing, then you can go, oh, and if I'm borrowing at a certain fret, then you're like, oh, okay, well, that's got to be this tuning. Yeah. But I find that, you know, and again, I empathize, I understand, but at the same point in time, it's like, we had to figure all this shit out on our own back in the day. Right. And now it's as if people want to just like take some kind of device, medical accoutrement, and open up their craniums, and for us to just pour the shit in and close it back up again. Okay, now you're good. It's like, no, you got to do a little footwork. In this case, just read the description of the video.
Right. Yeah, we're not quite at downloading Kung Fu into Keanu Reeves' cerebral cortex like we did. We're not there yet, right?
It's a matter of time, but for now.
It is fascinating for me as somebody that puts out content and stuff all the time and has dealt with the exact issue you're talking about. It's interesting to me to kind of play the game of psychology there and be like, how do people assimilate information?
Right.
How is it getting in their heads? Because like, if I did this, this, and this, and it still didn't click, it almost becomes a game to me where it's like, how do I get the little ball into the hole?
Right. Yeah. But you wonder a lot of times if it's just, they know damn well that they could find out what it is, but they just want to engage with you.
Right. Yeah. Oh, totally. There is that. There's the dog peeing on the rug for attention effect, which is very real.
That's a great image, by the way. Thank you for that. But maybe we can incorporate that in some of the Waffle Hostel.
Probably, yeah. There's a dog peeing on a rug in every corner of the Waffle Hostel. But on the positive side of the interaction thing of the internet, I get so many great questions and so many great comments on my channel and on my Instagram and my Patreon community. And I think sometimes you can tell when people have that genuine desire to learn, to know more.
Absolutely.
Even in text form with an anonymous picture and username, sometimes you can tell when somebody has that spark of like, they legitimately want to know more. Right. And I'm excited to help them because I remember being at that phase. I mean, I'm still in that phase of wanting to know more. I'm still learning, but
absolutely.
When you have that spark, you can recognize it. You've recognized it in other students and stuff you've worked with over the years, I'm sure, where you can see like, this person has the spark. I want to feed it. I want to help. So I'm always happy to engage in those kinds of conversations on the various platforms in that way as well.
And to your point, I mean, 99% of the people that engage are positive, and they're saying positive things. And then you go out there and, we're touring all over the place with the band, and these people come out and they're like, "Hey, thank you so much." And you really get this feeling of, man, this is cool. You've connected with these people on the internet. Yes. But of course, as musicians, which we are, at some point we were so needy that we had to do something so other people would go, "Look at me." So we have that insecurity thing where it's like you can get 1,000 positive comments, but 2 sorry sons of bitches come along with some weird, and we're like, "What? This is outrageous.
I don't deserve this."
But human's going to human.
What you can always do, and it's always worked great for me whenever somebody does have one of those, again, it feels like this isn't really about me. I think you're having a bad day and just taking it out on me or something.
Right.
One of my favorite responses, and it works every time, I just say, "Hey, man, thanks so much for watching. Your refund for what this video cost you to watch is in the mail. Stand by your..."
Exactly.
Would you like a refund?
Right.
And because really, like, at the end of the day, what are you going to say? Like, well, I guess I didn't pay anything for this.
I'm with you 1,000%, especially, if you're covering anybody else's stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not, the stuff I occasionally, like I did a thing on Funk 49 the other day just for how I play it. And I even said, like, this is how I play it. And you're like, well, that's not what Joe did. That's not Joe's tone. I'm like, you are correct. You are 100% correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I always kind of run into as well, man, anytime I am doing one of those like meticulous, transcriptions of somebody else's riffs or solos or whatever, and somebody is in there and they're like, "Hey, that's not how he does it. You're playing it wrong, blah, blah, blah." Like, I'm very much of and I picked this up from like Kevin Smith, the film director, but he's very much into the mindset of like, man, don't curse the darkness, light a candle,
Right.
So a lot of times, even with those kind of hostile comments, I like to respond back to these people and be like, "Hey, man, I went to your channel looking for a video on the right way to play it. Didn't see one. Looking forward to seeing you enlighten us all on the right way to do it."
Right. Perfect.
Because I am. Honestly, if I'm wrong, I look forward to learning how to do it right.
Right.
You should share.
Yeah, exactly. You are correct. I like it, Ben. These are good tools for the people.
That's right. They need them.
So in the various years that I've been down, you've done various things with our buddy Andy Wood. We were actually playing bass. And so
guitar.
What's your regular gigging scenario? Is it always fluctuating?
It's always in a state of flux, and that's honestly how I like it. I mean, everything from touring with, death metal bands like Whitechapel, playing shredding guitar and brutal riffs to get people punching the snot out of each other down there in the pit, to, I occasionally play with a yacht rock band here in town and play a strat through my, cerebella and play Christopher Cross tunes and Steely Dan and all that.
Yeah.
Playing various bass gigs, whether that be like a funk band, disco band, Andy Woods act, whatever. I like the variety, honestly. I kind of think I would wither if I had one of those gigs where I did the same thing all the time, because
Sure.
I like a big variety of stuff. Some people thrive in those environments, and they're like, I like speed metal. That's all I want to play. That's all I know how to play. And I played 30 years in the speed metal band, and that's awesome. But I just like a little bit of everything, and I like to play a little bit of everything. So I feel very fortunate that I've gotten to do so many different kinds of gigs, especially on bass too, because I love playing bass, man. I think I'm part of the rare guitar community that doesn't feel like I'm getting grounded from soloing when I play bass. Like, I legitimately love big guitar, and I wanted to play bass first. That's what I wanted to play originally, bass.
You wanted to rumble those polyps with the great low end funding.
I did. I did. Really didn't have a bass. My brother had a guitar. So it was like, well, pick this up, see if you, think it's something you want to stick with, and maybe we'll get you a bass later. But by the time that point came, it was like, well, I'm gigging and teaching now. So
right.
I guess this is me.
Right. I can dig it all. So how much do you figure you gig a month? I mean, is there obviously you're doing the YouTube stuff. That I know the incredible amount of time that takes to
Sure.
maintain, to produce those things, to figure out, to engage, all of that kind of stuff. So what kind of a balance do you have between your interneting and your going out and shredding?
Right. It really depends and varies month by month, year by year. I mean, in the past month alone, it's like we've had a couple of gigs with Skank Banger, which is our metal tribute band, me and Andy Wood and Andy Campbell, and a couple of our other buddies, Chris Cook on bass, and various different vocalists that work with that band. We've had a couple different Skank Banger gigs going around doing the 80s thing, lights, tights, and cat fights. People love it.
Lights, tights, and cat fights.
I don't understand it, but the people love it. So we're here to provide.
I like it.
Doing that stuff, man. We had an Andy Wood gig that just got canceled because apparently someone fell through the stage and they had to rearrange the
outrageous.
Yeah, exactly. So that was on the books, but now it's no longer. As well as doing like the Mastodon gig, over the past month too, down there playing in the Dominican Republic with them. So it really varies a lot, man.
I like what you're doing, and
I like it too. Thank you.
And I like what you've done. I like what you're doing, and I like what you've done. Say what?
Get
it?
Write that down. Tab that. Could you send me tabs for that?
I wanted to ask you something. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm negative Nancy, because I'm not.
I know you're not.
But I can't help. I mean, I understand what I'm about to explain. I understand the methodology. I understand why people think it's a thing, but you and I both know it's not a thing. But what is with this constant need on social media, whether it be on any of the platforms, the need for people to vigorously discuss the greatest guitar players, the greatest bass player, who's the greatest rock drummer of all time? What the hell is the deal?
Dude, the Sith has invaded social media. We're dealing in absolutes. What's going on anymore, right?
Exactly. It's like, you like what you like, if you want to talk about why your favorites are what they are. But again, it's all going to come back to, as I said before, where you're starting your clock.
Yeah.
But this need that there is some kind of inside scoop of who really was the best one. It's horseshit.
It is. Yeah, dealing with those kind of extremes and absolutes gets absolutely nowhere, because really it all comes down to, well, best at what?
Exactly.
Best at what? Because especially with our instrument, man, with the guitar in its various different forms, going all the way from the pointy super strat to the Telecaster to the arch top to the nylon string, all the different forms of guitar. There's oftentimes very little communication between the languages of even just the various forms of guitar.
Right.
So for example, if you take somebody like that, you think of one of the greatest electric guitar players on earth, like a Steve Vai for me. Steve Vai is like my dude.
Right.
I think of that Steve Vai as being, in my opinion, my favorite guitar player. Well, if you handed him Paco de Lucia's flamenco guitar and asked him to play with Paco and do flamenco stuff, suddenly there is no translation of that musical currency anymore.
Correct.
Now he is definitely not the greatest. Steve Vai is not the greatest flamenco guitar player.
Right.
Because there's, those are two completely different realms of technique, of harmonic language, of everything. And oftentimes there's not a lot of crosstalk between those things. So yeah, it's like comparing somebody like Paco to Steve Vai. It's, as Andy Wood likes to say, it's not apples to oranges, it's apples to bicycles. Like, why? How can you even compare and say what's better?
Right.
Completely different.
Absolutely.
Talking about favorites is one thing. Sure, you can have a personal favorite.
Exactly. But I think, especially in the realm of the non-musician that likes to talk about music,
sure,
I think that's this, where I'll see, I don't even know why I end up seeing them as I'm scrolling through, Twitter or whatever the case may be, or X, whatever it's called, or any of these other different platforms where they're like, the greatest of this. Well, I think so-and-so is the greatest. Just like, kids, it's not a thing. And a lot of times it's, well, whatever. I just find it to be amusing. Because, I remember when that was something we would do in high school. You know what I mean? And I remember in high school, there was a buddy of mine who was he was at that time more of a prog guy. Of course, that concept has changed quite a bit, but he thought Steve Howe was the greatest guitar player of all time. And I would say, yeah, Steve Howe is unbelievable, but I like Hendrix better because he does a thing that I like better. Now, can Jimmy play what Steve Howe plays? Absolutely not. Can Steve Howe play what Jimmy plays? Nope. So, and that's cool. And that's the way it should be. You like him. I like this, but it's not like one guy's got a, can walk around with a more decorated military ensemble with medals and so on and so forth because he's achieved a status that is superior.
All the merit badges.
Exactly. It's just, it's a curious thing. And I always get back to, wouldn't it be better time spent instead of talking about it, just playing your instrument?
You know what? How about that? Because you're right. It's like, how can you quantify greatness? Can you just put on an album and hold up the greatness meter?
Right.
They'll measure and be like, it's nailing the red line,
Indeed. This thing is going crazy. It's going haywire. It's beeping off the charts.
Right. Now, favorites is one thing, though. Favorites is one thing, and you can't quantify that. And you've always got to ask, like, okay, best in what way? Are you asking fastest?
Right.
Are you asking best songwriter? Because
that's a whole nother thing.
Nothing to do with each other.
Exactly.
Nothing at all, if that's the case, Paul McCartney's the greatest guitar player that's ever lived.
Right. Exactly. And then, of course, songs are completely subjective. People will say, well, the recipe for a great pop song is this. Yeah, of course you're right. Of course there are certain aspects of how songs are made to be commercially successful, but even the aspect of, what goes into great songs is very subjective. So it all just comes down to where you start the clock, what your level of sophistication is in terms of how much you've listened to things and so on and so forth. But even that, it's completely subjective. And in the end, no one gives a shit.
It is. And, I'm sure that you know exactly what I'm talking about here too, but like the average level of technique of young guitar players now is, astronomically higher than it's ever been.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
Unreal. The shred arms race is at an all-time high right now.
Totally.
But on the subject of songs, how do you feel about this? Where are the tunes now,
Well, that's it. Or even any kind of context for those chops that is just groove. Give me a groove, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean? Give me something give me something I want to listen to other than to be amazed by. You know what I mean?
Exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah. Songs are always at the heart of everything to me. I know that even on my own channel, I have a lot of videos about technique and like exercises and, hey, learn this lick. It'll help you with your picking and stuff. And I love doing that stuff. And I love approaching it that way. And people love learning that way too, which is great. I think the greatest teacher of all is always going to be songs though.
Right.
And I feel like that's something that in the, 15 to 60 second Instagram shred post era that we live in right now, I think that the value of playing and learning songs is really undervalued right now.
I think you're correct.
I
love figuring out, you know what? And I don't know about you, but even though I won't say I haven't done it in the past, but it's a rare occasion where I'll slow something down to figure it out. Yeah. Let me quantify that in just saying, if I'm learning the exact line of a song,
yes,
in terms of the actual melodic content, that's another matter. But if I'm like playing along and, if I'm hearing a lick or something like that, I'll be like, how's that go? And then I'll learn it, but I won't, because however I'm going to figure out, I'm going to twist it anyway. You know what I mean? So anyways, I'm just getting back to the point of, going in and figuring out those various different things. I just like playing along with records like all the time. It's the blast. But then learning the actual songs and then figuring out how am I going to do that song in my own way. I'm not really, but of course that's my own perspective. However anybody else does it is their own thing. And that's another thing. It's all good. However you're doing it is good.
Yep.
But as I was just bloviating on this other bullshit, I was thinking about asking you about this whole thing that's come out about these individuals who have doctored up their videos.
Sure. Yeah.
And
a lot of fakery abouts. Yeah.
A lot of fakery. And, to your point, I mean, a 60-second video, you can make anything sound good for 60 seconds. And, and then if you really want to take your time and slow things down, speed them up and all that kind of stuff for the purpose of astounding folk. But what is your, obviously I'm it isn't great to steal other people's material. That's a whole nother thing.
This is something I've been going about lately.
Exactly. And then, so you have two separate things, obviously. You've got the stealing of other people's stuff and making it your own for the purpose of internet notoriety, and then doctoring up performances for internet notoriety. In the end, if people are enjoying it and the person is profiting from it, is it icky? Yeah, but in the end, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, there's a lot to unpack there, honestly. And there's part of me that I'll play devil's advocate here, okay? There is part of me that whenever I hear people talking about how like, oh, did you know this section on this record was recorded at half speed, or this was recorded one note at a time, he wasn't really playing that, that's a sampler, whatever. There is part of me that, again, to be devil's advocate, will be like, well, it's art. It's not the Olympics.
Exactly.
Right. Like, performance enhancing drugs is in fact encouraged.
Yep.
Like really, like it's not the Olympics. You can't get disqualified for however you choose to be creative. Like, here's an example. I remember reading years back. Are you familiar with the band Fear Factory?
Yeah, I remember that band. Yeah.
Like industrial, like this cyber metal thing, man. I've always been really into their stuff. I think it's very fun. It just sounds like metal from the Terminator 2 soundtrack is what it sounds like, But I remember reading an article when they released their Digimortal record, which came out, I mean, I think that was early 2000s, early days of digital recording at home and stuff, Well, not at home, in the studio. But I remember Dino, the guitar player, he had this thing where he was talking about how a lot of times with the songs on the record, which again are very Terminator, cybernetic, inspired industrial metal stuff. He's like, yeah, I just play the gallop thing like once, and then we'd copy and paste it. So it was literally the same every time. That way it sounded less human. And that was part of the entire aesthetic. It was made to make it sound like a machine, dude.
Right.
And there was like part of me, I remember reading that in like a guitar magazine and reading it, and part of me being like, oh, that's cheating. And then part of me being like, no, that's done for aesthetic purpose. That is making it less human than human.
Right.
And if that's your intent, there's nothing wrong with producing your art that way.
Absolutely.
I mean, so there is that aspect of things to me. But I will also say, to counter myself, I don't think that's how a lot of people are using this. I don't think that a lot of people are making these choices for
art purpose. Right.
Art purposes. Exactly. I think that a lot of people are using these tools that are available and very easy to access. To do things that are cheap shock and awe and get the attention, I think it's almost a sign of a lack of creativity. I can't think of any better way to get your attention than doing something inhumanly fast or precise. So I'll just do that. That almost shows a lack of creativity to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Like when I hear you play a guitar and you make those squawks and squeals and again, that's that area I'm talking about where you have that factor too. You don't have to touch 16th notes to prove to anybody you're the baddest dude in the room. You don't at all. You have mastery and command without ever putting your foot on the gas pedal, dude.
Oh, and appreciate that. Fool him again, but thank you.
But you know that, and that's because you're a creative person that has something to say, and you have things to say that aren't just let me grab your attention by doing the easiest thing, which is speed and technique and virtuosity. Virtuosity itself is just kind of the fastest way to get attention.
Right.
Oftentimes the easiest way to get attention. So I think that's kind of what a lot of people reach for very often, rather than using creativity without using aesthetic, artistic direction, identity as a way to grab somebody.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
It's easy. I mean, at the end of the day, the short answer is it's easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's easier if your intent is to get follows, likes, and clicks.
Right.
Now, if your intent is to make art, if your intent is to express yourself and make things that are going to mean something to people, make songs that people are going to remember and want to hear time and time again, I'm not going to say you can't do that with that tool set. I'm just going to say I think that tool set doesn't often align with that intent.
All right, I'm with you.
You know?
I can dig it all. I can dig that all.
Hell yeah.
As we're getting up to the top of the hour here, why don't you just give us a little lowdown of what we can look forward to in the nearest future from you? Is there anything you want to call out to the attention to the peeps?
Oh, man, I think after this, I'm probably going to go and make myself a pretty great post-workout protein shake. Delicious. I think I might do that for myself. You should be happy we're not recording this in smell-o-vision. I just got back from the gymnasio, getting harder to kill. HTK every day, I like to say, which is why I'm wearing my I'm exercising
yes
shirt here. Just got back from the gym. So, a shower and the two S's, the shower and the shake, are probably in my near future. But past that, I'm really, really excited, man, to be working on this solo album this year. You know, that's going to be something that I'm very, very excited to put out there for you guys because it's been on the to-do list absolutely forever. And it's been kind of kicked down the road by having the wonderful fortune of being so tied up playing everybody else's music for the past decade or so, you know? Awesome. But there's a saying, I think it's I want to say it's a German proverb that said, the shoemaker's children go barefoot. The shoemaker's children go barefoot. And that's kind of where I've been. It's like I've been doing all these other gigs, which has been incredible and the best experience ever. But as a result of that, my own creative output has not been what I would like it to be.
Sure, I get
so I've got these tunes, man. I've written, tons and tons and tons of stuff that's ready to roll, and going to be getting on some production and stuff on that here really soon. So I'm very excited about that.
Well, I look forward to hearing that.
I think that you'll like it, man. I think that you'll like it. I think a lot of people will be maybe surprised at how not shreddy it is. It's it's instrumental. It's rock stuff. It's kind of progressive, not like genty progressive, but more just like, I like Odd Time Signatures progressive,
Sure.
But it's very riffy, dude. It's very riffy. It's all about big ass riffs. Because that's my love language, dude. My love language is riffs.
I know. I love them too.
So I'm very, very excited about how this is coming together. I'm kind of toying around with the idea of doing another metal project here too, which has been pretty fun. I just recently did that gig filling in with my friends from Mastodon, which is a dream gig of mine. I've adored that band for 20-something years now. So to get the opportunity to go and actually play with them was phenomenal.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing. That kind of it got my metal hackles back up again because it'd been a while since I got to play some proper, heavy, brutal stuff live. And that's kind of my home base. I like playing a lot of everything, really. If the players are good and the vibe is good, I like it, but metal is so fun to play live. It's so fun to play aggressive stuff.
Yes.
So I think doing that gig kind of rekindled sort of a passion for that in me.
Nice.
Excuse me. So there might be some more brutal stuff coming down the pike sometime here soon too, because I've written a lot of songs just kind of while I've been on this high from that gig, and they got to go somewhere. They got to go somewhere.
They need to be unleashed.
So I might be doing something heavy as well. I mentioned earlier in the podcast my old band Arc, that progressive band, instrumental band. We like I said, we broke up years ago, but we had some unfinished tunes. We had some songs that we had put together but never recorded. And me and the guys have started talking and stuff again, and everybody's on great terms. And we're thinking about going in the studio and recording those last couple of songs for that project.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm excited about that. You guys can find all the old ARC stuff at soundcloud.com/official ARC. That's ARC, official ARC. You can listen to the songs that we recorded back then up there. I think it's fun. I'm still really proud of that music. So I might be doing a little bit of that stuff as well. I've got some lesson courses. That's, again, another long-term project that I've talked about doing that's kind of got kicked down the road a lot, but it's time, Greg. I've been stepping over dollars to pick up dimes, and the time is over, baby.
Yes.
It's time for the lesson courses. I have some hidden guitar Illuminati wisdom that I'm so stoked to share with everybody. It's
awesome.
Things about music theory and ways to approach it, scale pattern visualization, technical stuff, all kinds of good things afoot. I'm so excited to put into these lesson packages. So that is, again, that's been on the to-do list for way too long, but I'm excited to unleash it upon the masses now. So that will definitely be cool. Possibly some more Mastodon touring. Not sure about that yet. Everything's kind of up in the air right now. I've had a lot of my fans ask if I'm going to be on the next Mastodon tour that they're doing with Coheed and Cambria and Periphery. And they are taking another guitar player on that, a very fine guitar player, I might add. Hey, they're just flirting around. You know what I mean? They're playing, baby. Play that dating game. You just got out of a 25-year-long band marriage.
Right.
Why don't you go flirt around a little bit? You know,
I taste of what's out there.
I can dig it.
Right.
So I won't be on this next tour. Maybe some more later on down the road. I'm very excited for you guys to see who is on this next tour, though, because it's I'm not at liberty to say, but it's a very fine player and a friend of ours. So I think that you will enjoy seeing that as well. So stay tuned to Masto Camp for more news on that as it comes along. But yeah, very excited, man. A lot of cool stuff afoot for the year for sure.
Beautiful. Well, listen, Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to converse with us. It was a pleasure, as I knew it would be. And
the pleasure has been all mine, sir.
And I look forward to hopefully crossing paths with you sooner than later.
Am I going to see you at the Woodshed Guitar Experience this year?
I have not heard. I know I'm traveling quite a bit around that time, but we shall see.
Okay. Well, I hope that we do. And if we do, we will smash a meat wall at Buc-ee's. We'll find a Waffle House. Yes. And hopefully engage in some musical chicanery along the way.
I love all of the above, my friend. Thank you so much.
The pleasure's all mine.
Have Cheers. A good one. Well, thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Chewing the Gristle. We certainly do appreciate you stopping by. Make sure you tell your friends all about us. I think they might enjoy themselves. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.